Sometimes divorce just happens even though you didn't intend it. But today, how to stop divorce and save your marriage. Folks, we're back with Larry Bilotta, who's been on another episode here talking about what destroys a marriage. Today, as we get into, all right, how do I stop a divorce and save my marriage? Larry, when we talked before, we talked about how sometimes the programming is that you have to stay together and stay miserable. And have to tell you, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the misery part of that equation.
That's right. But that's what happens when mom and dad stay married and stay miserable. But there's a lot of combinations of how marriages go.
Yeah.
But the big story that I want your viewers to really catch is that there's a tornado-like structure to a marriage. Like the tornadoes, when it spins in the beginning, the problems seem like they're just isolated problems. And then it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And what's happening is the chaos of childhood is literally forming the tail of the tornado. And so what is this whole childhood thing, this whole chaos thing? The chaos thing is you ended up marrying a chaos kid, or you are a chaos kid, or you're a chaos kid who married a chaos kid. That means both of you have troubling childhoods, which means three things: abandonment, abuse, and neglect. And when I say abandonment, abuse, and neglect, I mean physical and emotional. All right, so all three of those, the physical, emotional versions. So what the big thing that is very hard for people to accept is my childhood is still here. It's still operating. It's in my subconscious mind. It's still here. Don't think it's the past. It's not the past. It's like a vinyl record. It gets engraved, and once it's engraved, it sits there like a pattern. And all you have to do is put it in a player, and now it's going to play the same song that was recorded in 1945. So you have to know that your childhood, which was recorded in those 55,000 hours, 10 years of waking time, you were exposed to your parents' instructions being poured in and poured in and poured in. And now, see, it's not a memory that's passed. It's a memory that's recorded. That's the way you want to think of this. This is a recorded thing. It's in my subconscious mind. I don't know where that is, but it's there. And I'm carrying it around with me, right? So now all I need to do as I fall in love and I get married, and when we think about what we want, is we want a normal man, we want a normal woman. So the man wants a normal woman. And a normal woman is a woman who has the guy's heart. So I have your heart. And what happens when I have your heart? When I have your heart, you are my number one priority. I think about you first. I consider you first. I talk to you first. I want to make you first. You have my heart. Now, what happens in divorces? I lose the heart. I don't have the heart anymore. And when I don't have the heart anymore, now you're not the priority. You're not my first thought. You're not my first consideration. You're my last consideration. I don't even know you. You're an irritation to me. See, when the heart's gone, the divorce happens.
It's done.
And what happens is there's two divorces. There's the first divorce and the second divorce. And the first divorce is the day you lose your heart. So if the guy loses the girl's heart, he doesn't even know it happened. It's quiet and just boom, she lost. She just doesn't have it anymore. He's not a priority to her anymore, but he doesn't notice. He doesn't even know what he's seeing. He doesn't know how to interpret it. If the woman loses a man's heart, she doesn't know. He's lost his heart. He's not connected to her anymore. There is no importance now. I don't have to check with her. I don't have to think about her. I don't have to care about her. It's all gone, right? That's the first divorce. The second divorce is the divorce everybody gets upset about. That's when you go down to the courthouse to sort out custody and assets. And everybody's all worked up about that. But that's not an issue. The courthouse will give you a divorce this month, and then they'll give you a marriage license next month. They don't care. Right? The big deal is the day you lose the heart. The day you lose the heart is the day the divorce actually happens. And so the question is, can I stop the process of losing the heart? Can I stop the process?
Yes.
All right. So what is the job? What's our job? Our job is to win our hearts again. That's our job. To win our hearts again, AGAIN. Don't think about the first time you won the heart. That was an easy job, right? You don't even know how you did it, right? But This is the job of winning the heart again. And in order to win the heart again, you have to think in terms of, well, why am I losing his or her heart? Why am I losing? Because the childhood chaos is ripping the intimacy apart. That's the reason you're losing the heart. Because what is intimacy really is I trust you and I enjoy you. That's really intimacy. And so if you have intimacy, I trust you and I enjoy you, what's happening to it when the childhood chaos is coming and banging away at the marriage? You're losing I trust you and you're losing and I enjoy you. So in order to stop that process, you have to start to consider this chaos to purpose scale. So the chaos to purpose scale illustrates where you were raised. Best place, the purpose home. The middle place called the twilight zone, and then the chaos area from 50 to 0. Right? Once you learn that the more pain you're given, the more abandonment, abuse, and neglect you're given, the more you're stored with abandonment, abuse, and it's going to be dished out onto your spouse. But it's not going to be dished out if the two of you realize that the more we talk about our childhoods, the weaker the childhood gets. The less we talk about our childhoods, the more powerful and invasive the childhood gets. Okay? So less talk about childhood, more ugly. More talk about childhood, more relief. And that's a very simple idea. Talk about your childhood. Talk about the stories of what your mom did to you, what your dad did to you, the scary things that happened to you, things that terrified you. The more you talk about that with each other, the more this whole system down there in the subconscious mind weakens. And this is not something you do in one day. This conversation needs to go on literally for months. That's a lot of what turned Marcia and I around. Marcia and I started to talk about our childhoods in depth, and it went on for years. And that's one of the reasons why we're 43 years and a whole lot happier than we were
doing a whole lot better, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah,
this is brilliant, because what I just envisioned is that all this is in the basement, causing all of the noise and disruption. And we're turning on the lights. We're bringing it up out of the basement. It's not some mystical hoo-hoo process that, you talk about your childhood and everything gets better. It's becoming aware, bringing it to the conscious, so that now you can actually do something about it and have some choice in what direction you're going to steer it from this point.
So a simple illustration of how that would look is, I need to be on time. Famous thing, right, with couples. I need to be on time. Well, tell me a story in your childhood about where that came from. Tell me a story about that, Bill. Tell me a story about why you need to be on time. And so Bill goes, well, I never thought about it, but my father was a fanatic about time. He had a lot of clocks. He had clocks all over the place. And then when mother was late, oh man, he would just browbeat her, and he would complain, and he would moan and gripe, and then he ruined the whole family's vacation if we were not on time. So there's the story, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's not stored in Bill's subconscious is Dad's imprint about time. Right. And so what happens when his wife is late? Dad's entire system turns on, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens when Bill starts to talk about Dad's details, how Dad did it, right? Back in the 40s or the 60s or whenever that was. What happens? It starts to weaken. Just talking about the dad behavior and what it was like and the little quirkiness of how Dad was time obsessed. He was obsessed with time. And why? You go back into his childhood and you'll find out why, right? Not necessarily to do that, but all that Susan, his wife, needs to learn is that Bill's father was a on-time fanatic. And today, Bill is an on-time fanatic, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm using the thing called being late and time as one issue. But how many issues are there in a marriage? There's thousands upon thousands of issues. And where do those issues all come from? The first 10 years. So we have to take those issues one at a time and say, hey, Bill, why are you so upset when I don't put mayonnaise on your sandwich? Right? And this is how little it can be, right? You don't put mayonnaise, you forget to put mayonnaise on my sandwich. And I get so furious when you don't put mayonnaise on my sandwich. And I tell you, you don't do it, right? Now, Susan, who didn't put mayonnaise on Bill's sandwich, so Bill says, tell me a childhood story about why you don't put mayonnaise on my sandwich. And so She goes, I never thought about it before. And now she tells a story about her mother and sandwiches and mayonnaise.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So this is how rich the conversation gets. And the richer and the deeper the conversation gets, the closer the people become. Why? Because they start to feel safer. Because now this childhood turmoil is now being discussed. It's being weakened, lowered, and the couple starts to get relieved. Oh, so you do that because your father did? You do that because your mother wouldn't put mayonnaise on dad's sandwich? Oh, is that why you do this? Is that why? Is that why? Is that why? Now we know why. And see, that's the beginning of the healing process. And ideally, we want that to happen before you lose the heart of the person that you once loved. Before you lose the heart, that's the time to begin this.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say, give yourself a year to talk this through. That's a really good way to think about it. Give yourself a year.
Wow. So it's not a quick flash in the pan, hey, have this conversation and everything's all fixed.
That's right. It's not a one conversation thing because you can't remember all of the variety of the stories. They have to come back to you, and that takes time. So you need current events to bring up the subject, and then you need to go back in time and remember. And that takes time, and lots of events have to happen for you just to have the event and the memory and the event and memory. You constantly bring them. That'll take a year to do that.
What we're doing
is a really productive thing to do.
It's raising the awareness of the programming. You've mentioned programming. We get programmed, trained, taught, educated to perceive our life and our relationships in a certain way. We're bringing that to our awareness through these conversations. And then when it's in our awareness, we can actually do something else with it.
Yes, because when you think about what happens to you, you're in an intimate relationship conversation. Here's my intimate relationship. He and I are now in an intimate conversation about what? Well, we're talking about an upsetting event. But we're not just talking about an upsetting event. We're talking about the origin of why it's upsetting. That's what couples aren't doing. They aren't doing that. They aren't saying, the reason I am so upset that you don't put mayonnaise on my sandwich is because when my father didn't get his mayonnaise on his sandwich, he would really torment my mother. And now here I am doing the exact same thing my dad did when he doesn't get mayonnaise on the sandwich. Now, I don't want to be this way. I wish I wasn't this way. But man, the subconscious thing just takes me over and I can't even help it. Right? Well, now she starts to have compassion for it. She starts to go, oh, so your father's program is making you upset. Yeah, and I don't even like it.
And then
you think I want to get this upset? That's what people say. You think I want to be this upset? I don't want to be this upset.
They don't. Who does? Right?
Yeah.
And then the focus off of blame, where they're blaming each other for, well, it's because you're not putting mayonnaise on my sandwich. That's why I'm so upset.
Yes.
Well, let's see if we can get a little deeper into the programming and maybe start to practice a new pattern.
In movies and television shows, they have a thing called the origin story. And everybody loves the origin story. And so that's really what we're doing here. We're doing what movies do. We're telling the origin story. Finally, we're telling the origin story. But rather than just telling some broad brush view of my past, we're now taking a current event and tying it to a childhood memory. Current event tied to a childhood memory. And it takes time for that to happen, and that's okay. Take the time. Take a year. But don't divorce. For crying out loud, don't divorce. What you're doing is you're creating a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That's what divorce is. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And the problem is temporary because you could have talked through and discovered all these childhood memories, weakened that dark energy, and freed yourself from it by doing it together.
Mm.
And what I keep finding is the people who don't do this. They don't ever talk this through, ever. And so what I always start in literally every conversation, so tell me about your dad. What was he like when you were a kid? I have that phrase over and over and over again. And so I get the person's memory, and then I'll talk about his wife if I'm talking to Bill. And so Bill will tell me, I don't really know much about her mother and father. I never really talked to you. You've been married 17 years. Yeah, it just never came up.
Yeah.
17 years. You never talked about childhood in 17 years? No, it just never came up. that that's the kind of relationships that these couples have, and they expect to stay married. You're not going to stay married. You're just not. And when that chaos comes out of your subconscious mind, boy, it's going to beat up your intimacy. You're not going to have any intimacy left. You're not going to enjoy each other. You're not going to trust each other. It's going to be over. Because it has to be.
Because we lose the
Because
heart.
you didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. So there's hope?
No, there's not hope. There's a plan. You know, people talk,
Thank you.
Is there any hope for my marriage? Is there any hope for my marriage? Forget hope. Hope is not a plan. Hope is not a plan. A plan is, let's do this because there's a real reason to do it. That's a plan. Hope is not a plan. But people are real content with hope. Oh, I hope I'm going to win the lottery. You know, no, hope's not a plan.
So
rather than saying,
hoping,
is there hope?
And do, get a plan.
Yeah. Rather than saying, is there any hope, say, is there any plan? That's really a better question. Is there any plan?
Right.
And so I've laid all this out in this Marriage Tornado article I wrote, and it spells all this out in detail. And you know, if you want to kind of be slapped up on the face, read the Marriage Tornado, because it'll start to really wake you up and like, wow, I had no idea. That's what people tell me all the time. I had no idea this was like, I never heard of this before.
We'll include a link to that in the description below, folks, so that you can see what Larry's talking about there. The Marriage Tornado.
Yes.
Nice.
That's the full explanation. The quick explanation is the chaos to purpose scale. Where were you raised? And the lower you're raised on the scale, the shorter your marriage is going to be. And if you do nothing, the shorter your marriage is going to be.
Right.
And so, you know what? The reason this is such a non-viral idea and people don't want to spread it is because the question is, am I really free to choose? If this programming can take me over like this, am I really free to choose? And if you don't get to the source and start dealing with those origin stories and start to really spell them out together, you start realizing, I'm not treating you with this way, Bill, because I hate you. I'm treating you this way because I'm programmed to treat you this way. I don't like being this way. I want you to help me help you to not treat you this way. And that's really what free will looks like. Free will is, I know I've got this origin ugliness, but I'm not going to bring it into our relationship if we can help it. So let's talk it through. Let's tell the stories. Let's tell the origin stories. And so we can start to separate our childhood pain from our adult lives.
Yes.
Doesn't that sound good?
You know what, Larry? Sometimes I tell my clients, until you see it as a choice, it's not.
That's right. That's exactly it, Paul.
We're just rolling
you have
with
to see it as a choice.
Can we do something about it? Absolutely. Until we see it as a choice, it's not. And that's why this is so important to bring it to our awareness, to have the conversations, to acknowledge and admit, as painful as that might be, that yes, we have been programmed. Okay.
The wonderful thing about this programming is none of it is your fault. Yeah. None of it is your fault. You're a little kid. They dropped all this stuff into you. You didn't choose that. That's not your choice. Right? And now it's in here. All the records are stored, and now they're playing. They're playing on their own. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault at all. So there's no judgment or condemnation. You're not part of you the way your mother and father treated you. You're part of that. And yet kids, they take blame. They take a lot of blame. Like, maybe it was my fault that my parents divorced.
Yeah.
That's how kids are.
Well, you're talking some good stuff. Maybe this will go viral. Who knows? We'll see. Larry,
well, this will be a first.
Sharing that.
This will be a first.
I appreciate your sharing that today here at Live on Purpose TV. What wise words and counsel. And like I said, folks, down in the description below, you'll get some links to the documents that Larry was referring to earlier on the Marriage Tornado, the Chaos to Purpose Scale. You're doing some good work. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on. It was really good.
Larry Bilotta. He's got a lot of really great ideas, and I hope that this can help you with your marriage. If you've got other ideas, share them down below so that we can have that conversation.